Today on Cooking for Real, we are going into the Spanish world and we are going to make a family favorite around here. I actually make it for Easter. Well, made it for Easter. We are going to make pernil. So you're going to need a little bit of hardware with this. You're going to want to get your biggest roasting pan. Let me back up. Your biggest roasting pan. And you want racks. Mine don't quite fit, so I end up putting 2 in, but these are simple cooling racks. I really ought to go ahead and buy the ones that go in the pan, but you just put these in. What you really want here is for the meat to not sit in its own juices as it's cooking. You definitely want the juices to flow, but you don't want the meat just so saturated with the grease that it's slimy and inedible. But we are going to be working with, this is a pork shoulder. It does have a bone in, and I want to show you the important part here. See this? It's not fat. This is skin, and this is key to making an excellent pernil. One side hasn't got much skin or fat or whatever on it, and that's actually going to go face down in the pan. Now, in a previous video in which I worked with pork, bacon specifically, I made a little graphic that said salmonella sucks, and it has been pointed out to me that salmonella is not what you get from pork. Trichinosis is what you get from pork. Either way, anytime you're working with pork, or any other meat for that matter, you really got to wash your hands a lot. Anytime you touch this piece of meat, before you move on to anything else, I want you to wash your hands. What you're going to do is cut cross hatches in that skin that I showed you. Now, cutting those cross hatches into that skin is actually really difficult work. It's why I'm only going to show you a couple of snapshots, because doing that while holding the camera would have been extremely difficult. I tried. They don't have to be perfect cross hatches, by the way, and if you find that when you're going across in the second direction that the skin is just sliding all over the place, you've probably done a fine job. You don't have to go to town on this thing. What you really need to do, though, is expose the meat underneath for the seasoning that we're about to create and rub in. There's a lot of cilantro and parsley and garlic going into this, and since I prefer to use fresh, it would take me half the day to just chop these up. So I'm going to take out my handy dandy little hand blender, and I'm going to put the majority of that right in there. What we are looking for here is a paste, and the base of this paste will actually be just your generic olive oil. So right now I'm actually cutting the rooty ends off of each of the cloves of garlic because I don't like them. I don't want to find them in my food. They're just this hard little nub at the end. I had some difficulty peeling a head and a half of garlic because, gosh, once your fingers get wet, the paper on the garlic loves to just stick to you. I am putting this in that immersion blender. So I'm not cutting these down to really tiny pieces, just bigger chunks. At first blush, a head and a half of garlic does seem like a lot of garlic, but once it's broken down and made into a paste that we're going to rub into that skin, you'll see it's not as bad as you think. And that is, I believe it's 10 pounds of meat, so that's a lot of meat to flavor. I'm adding olive oil, 2 tablespoons by eye. Dropping it into the sink. Thank God the sink was there. That would have been a terrible mess to have to clean up. Next thing, what I want to do is I'm going to add the cilantro. I don't like stems very much. So I like to cut the stems off of these. You can see that on the cilantro, it's a very rooty end. I'll just pull the leaves off, drop them right in. So I'm starting with about 1/3 of the bunch of this cilantro, and then I'm going to move on and do the same thing with the parsley, about 1/3 of the bunch. This is the Italian leaf. I like the bigger leaf. You don't have to use the Italian leaf. Absolutely use the kind that you like, the flavor that speaks to you. Quite frankly, in my grocery store today, it just looked fresher. I like a crisp, clean, fresh taste to the seasoning that I put on my Pernil. Personally, I prefer fresh ground pepper. Do it yourself. It's not a big deal. Tastes so much better.
Hey, wait a minute! This isn't fresh pepper. I grew up on a pepper farm.
Kosher salt. It's got a coarser grind and I think a stronger flavor. I like to salt and pepper the pork while I'm making the marinade, as it were, but I always throw a little salt and a little pepper right into this immersion blender. Next up, we have Goya Adobo. I'm going to sprinkle that right on the meat, but I am putting a fairly generous amount into the mixture. And just because I love the flavor of it, I am going to add two of these Sazon Goyas. I buy them with the coriander and annatto. Anyway, this is the box. I like the one with the peach color on the top. Now what we're going to do is get messy again. And I've told you before, if you're going to get messy, take those rings off. You really regret it if you don't. I tell you, I'm getting better and better at the fine art of balancing this phone in weird places. I wasn't kidding. It's just time to get messy. Rub it in, get it into those cuts that you made in there. Get every surface. It actually feels kind of good. And the smells that come up. Jay just walked in and said how good it smelled in here while I was recording, and honestly, it was just the cilantro, parsley, and garlic in this. This is the most amazing scent, even when it's raw. Looking for a nice, even coverage, rubbed right into those cuts you made. And look at that. How pretty is that? So I'm going to hold this up so that you can see it. Now comes the hard part. You don't get to cook this today. No, what we're going to do here, and by the way, I learned part of this the hard way. I'm going to cover this and I'm going to put it in the fridge and I'm going to let it set and marinate overnight, and then I'm going to cook it slow tomorrow. But here's the important part. Do not use tin foil. Tin foil on contact with garlic and some of the things in the Sazon, I believe, tin foil melts. And then you have glops of melted tin foil on your food, and it makes you really reluctant to cook it. So all I'm doing right now is poking in a couple of toothpicks. Okay, just to get the saran wrap I'm about to put on here up off of the meat. This is just for my own sanity, because I think I just prefer that the marinade sticks to the meat and not the saran wrap. Now I'm going to put this in overnight. I have done it for several days. When I made this for my family for Easter, I gave it, I think, a good 72 hours of marinating time. Mostly because I needed one thing done before the big holiday, so I gave myself a little leg room there. I don't know if it tasted any better than if I had just done it overnight. Now, die-hard Pernil fans will tell you it did taste better because I gave it 72 hours. And that ought to do it. You just want to make sure that it is sealed up. See, now it's not quite sealed, and now I'm unhappy. I'm really just looking to make sure that air isn't getting in here. If it means I spend a little extra on plastic wrap this month, then so be it. But as I was corrected earlier, we don't want any trichinosis. Okay, I will see you tomorrow when it is time to put this bad boy in the oven, and hopefully I get a response on my request for yellow rice recipes, and we'll make that to go with this.